You never forget the first people you meet when you start in a brand new industry. And when I had decided that I wanted to work and be of service in the space of death, Darnell Lamont Walker was one of the first faces that I learned from, laughed along to, and felt kind of at home with. Sorry, Darnell, that might sound really weird because I'm kind of still a stranger to you, even though we just talked for an hour. Um, I am so excited for all of you to listen to the conversation that we just had. I probably am not cool at all, but that's okay. I'm going to ask the questions that I think you want to know. And I think this conversation is going to give you some inspiration, some motivation to have those challenging conversations with yourself, with those in your life, to inch a little closer to the discomfort, to realize like this is all we have. All we have is the moment we are in now until we die. And none of us know when that is for ourselves or for those we love. And so, yeah, I hope you feel a little pressure after this. I hope maybe even inspires you to get into death work, to find ways in which you can be with those who are actively dying, or to just be someone in the lives of those around you who reminds them that, hey, we're all going to die. Not in a morbid way, but in an inspirational, let's go, let's live our life while we're still here kind of way. So I think you're going to love this conversation and stick around till the end.
Right on.
Okay. Well, welcome to the show, Darnell. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
You were one of the first people that I found when I started my, I guess, like death exploration journey. I had been for years wanting to have conversations around death. And I was like, nobody's having these conversations. And then I got on Instagram and I found you and I found all these other people. And I was like, people are talking about death.
Hmm.
And it's just been so inspiring to see this. So, I'm a fan of you and I'm really glad to have you here today. Um, I've just read your book. We're going to talk about it today, but I always ask guests if they can share with me when death became a known in their life. Can you remember when you were a child? It could be
Hmm.
a significant death, or it could just
Yeah.
be a conversation you had with an adult or another child about death.
Yeah, no, for my earliest memory of death itself was my grandma's sister. I remember when she was a big smoker. And I remember when she was told, we were 7 or 8, and she was told, if you keep smoking, you have to stop smoking. And I remember thinking, like, I hope she doesn't die. Like, this was, we were always at her house, we were playing. She was just this great person. And then she kept smoking. And then she ended up with cancer and was in the hospital. And it was quick. My kid brain, like, I always want to go back and do the research of and ask the family. I never do, but I should, of what was the timeline like. But I just remember it being so quick and her being in the hospital and everyone coming back saying, well, she's going to die. And so that was about 9. And it was the I was so curious and I was a curious kid. So it was my grandmother being open to having these conversations with me and my mom too. Although this is my dad's aunt, but my mom would always have these conversations too with me. And so that was the earliest memory of, okay, well, she's gonna die. That means we won't see her again. Um, okay. And thankfully they took us to the funeral. They let us go to the funeral, me and all my cousins who were about the same age, some a couple years younger. And they never shied away from that and from the conversations. And so, yeah, about 8 or 7, 8 or 9 around there.
Yeah. And I mean, that kind of fits in because in your book, you talk a lot about how your family, especially your grandmother, she
Hmm.
didn't keep you away from this. She brought you like right into the depth,
Oh yeah.
the bedside of death. Can you share a little bit about her and those
Oh yeah.
experiences for you?
Yeah, her name was Irene Elizabeth Jones. She was this person. She was just the neighborhood grandmother. Like she was that person. Everyone felt comfortable coming to her house. They were like, I was annoyed at so many times because I would come there and someone would be sitting on the couch and I wanted to sleep. I'm like, I want to go to sleep, but I was always at her house. But it was just, that's who she was. It was so much love, and she took care of people. And so, I say she had been doing this work for decades. Her mother done this work, and none of them knew what a death doula was. But for her, it was just, well, this is just what I do. I take care of people. I love people. She was making, she was well known for her potato salad. And so I knew that someone was going through something if I came to her house and there was a big bag of potatoes sitting next to her chair. And I'd get the pot and I'd boil the water and I'd help her do this. And she was always going to see friends. And strangely, it was like this thing where I feel like at least every other week, she was going to a funeral or um, to a nursing home or a hospice or making potato salad for someone. And I just remember thinking like, oh, well, this is what love looks like, and this is how we take care of people. So I grew up, with that thought of I want to do that for people too. But yeah,
That's
that was
incredible.
her. Yeah.
What I really love about that, and you do kind of talk about it in the book, is you were a boy, you were a man, and a lot of times historically, this is especially like women's work, girls' work, right? Teach a young girl how to take care of the family, and so I mean, there's so much in this. I mean, I just got goosebumps because I do a lot of work around like the patriarchy and how it impacts men, and I think it's so remarkable that you're kind of in a space. I actually you were leading something the other day, and there's maybe a couple hundred people there, and just so many women's faces and
Yeah.
not a lot of faces like yours.
It's so strange. It's funny. It was at the Anelda
Yeah.
conversation. It was so funny because I did a thing I was in a workshop as a participant last year with Anelda. And it was my first time with them. And I remember there were maybe 75, 100 people in there. And at one point, someone just stopped and said, I just want to say thank you to Darnell for being, and I was like, wait, what? And they were like, for being the only man in here. And I had never paid attention to that. Like, I'd never noticed it until someone pointed it out. And I was like, oh, there aren't a lot of guys in here. But thankfully, um, in recent years and last few months even, there's so many guys who say, I've been wanting to do this, but I'd never seen a guy do it. How do I get started? I'm like, yes, we need you over here. Come, 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 come.
I love that.
Yeah, it's such a great thing. But yeah, I mean, it was, a lot of that was, again, my grandmother, like growing up with her was, that there was no, this is what boys do thing. It was like, I'm going to teach you how to sew. I was threading needles for her. It was like, yeah, we just love life and love people. And this
Yeah.
is what taking care of yourself and taking care of people look like without, shame or embarrassment or anything. So
Yeah.
I never thought about how caregiving was a woman's, you know,
Yeah.
job. This is what we should all be doing, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so many times until we see someone who looks like us doing something, do we think, oh, I could do that?
Hmm.
Do you
Hmm.
think now that you do kind of realize that you're one of few at this moment, does that feel like a motivation to kind of create that space or
Yeah, like it has made me pay more attention when I'm talking to guys, and not just talking to guys about death and grief, but just having conversations with other men, and they're telling me, stories about whatever, and something might stand out where they were very supportive in something, or you know, just very caring, and something that would be kind of out of the box that we would think was kind of out of the box. And I'll go, have you ever thought about being a death dude? And it won't even be about death. And they're like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah, like you have the capacity to do this, like the way you listen and the way you can show up for others. I mean, like we could really use you in this work. And sometimes I go in a more gentle way, but I do pay more attention to it and try to. I'm kind of a death doula recruiter at this point. So yeah.
of that? Um, We've had death doulas on in the past,
Mhm.
but I think every end of life care worker has a different idea of what it means to them. So I'd love to know, like, how do you explain what it is that you do with people at the end of their life or on their
Yeah.
journey as they get closer?
Yeah. For me, what I do is I get to come in and well, I get to come in one and be supportive, right, which is essentially what we all do, right? We all get to come in and be supportive. But me, I like to bring myself into this work, and so as a writer, as a storyteller, as an observer, I like to come in and say, hey, what do you want to leave behind? What stories do you want to tell? And sometimes it's not, that directly. Sometimes it's just me coming in and having these conversations and getting to know these folks who've allowed me to come in and let me be there with them. And in those conversations, I'm like, listen, that's an incredible story. Can I write that down? Can I share this with your family? And some folks have never thought about that. They've never thought like, oh, that is something I can leave behind. Because we all want to be remembered. No one wants to be, I haven't had anyone who wanted to be forgotten. But the story still didn't come to mind as something that would aid in that. And so I say, hey, I could write this. I could tell this in a way that's so incredible. And they're like, yeah, let's do it. And even if it's just the obituary, it's like, no, let's not do this four sentence obituary that the family was planning. I can make this 5 pages. Like, this is an incredible life that you have lived. And that's still not enough, but it's a start. And so I love to do that. But a lot of it too is advocating. I come in and I get to advocate for people in the medical system that, especially if Black folks, it's like a medical system that still, it's not equal for some of us, which strangely, it's like it's 2026. But I get to do that. I get to come in and have these hard conversations that the families weren't sure how to start. Um, that's, I think that surprised me, um, being one of the major parts of my work here, is that when I get called, it's usually the family saying, well, we don't know how to ask this from them, or we don't know how to talk about this. Could you do it? And we'll just leave the room, and then you get all the information we need. So I'll do it, but I'll also let the person who's dying know, like, hey, your family is afraid of talking about it. Are you? And they're like, no. And so then I make them come back in and say, okay, ask the question that you wanted me to. And then they realize, like, oh, we can have this. And so they're able to have that connection at the end too. And I'm huge on connections, huge on dying with fewer regrets as well. And so it's like, what can I do to get you closer to that and closer to the death that you want as possible? So all of that
Yeah.
um,
It's
is
it's
part of the work.
incredible because I think, you're kind of coming in whether the clock has started or not, there's
Mhm.
this countdown, right?
Yeah,
And depending how long people think they have or don't have, it's sort of what can we get with the time that's left, knowing that it is, an active death that's happening. And so many of us do think, oh, I should have asked that. I wish I'd known this. And so to have someone like yourself kind of in between, it's like, okay, it's go time. Like
yeah,
it's
yeah,
now or never. And having that reminder because it can be easy to just kind of ignore it. And the number of times that people just can't face that it's happening, you kind of are there. The
yeah.
reason you are there is that this is really happening.
It's happening. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it
yeah.
surprises me, often when because it's if we don't talk about it, it won't happen, although it is happening. And so the longer we can put off this conversation or these things, we can extend this life. And it's like it's not going to work that way. One of my last clients, they called, well, the husband and wife called me because her mom was dying. She um, had pancreatic cancer at that point for a year. And I'm talking to the husband and wife, and they are saying, there's time, we're thinking about having, the family gathering in January, and this is November, and
Mm.
I'm like, oh, okay, January, okay. So then when I talk to the mom, and it's just me and her in this room on FaceTime, she's like, they think I have time. She's like, I might have a couple of weeks. I don't, and no one wants to talk to me about that. And I'm
Wow.
like, okay, yes, because it is scary. It is scary to face that head on,
Yeah.
but it's so necessary because if we don't, then what we're left with are questions and regret about, I wish I would have asked this. I wish I could have said this. I wish I could have had this conversation. There's so much left in me, um, that now no one will be able to answer. And it's like, no, we have to get straight to it. So usually I'll come in and my first question is, how do you want to die? Before we get to anything else. And one, it makes the person face it as well, but also the family who's there listening, like, oh, can you ask that? Like, yeah, well, that's what I'm here. I want to make sure you get as close to that. But it also gives them this control over a situation where they don't really have control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, you've had so many diverse experiences around death, and I'm sure this book is just like a sprinkling of them to kind of give us a variety. One that really stuck with me was, one of the people who was dying and wanted to have their ceremony honored, right? And the family had a different idea of what that would be like, and you tried to go to bat for them and help it come to their wishes, and in the end, unfortunately, they only got a little bit. Things like that. I'm just wondering, what have you, like as Darnell, had to like let go of or adjust or just get gritty and uncomfortable with doing this work that you're like, this, if it wasn't for this work, I'd be tiptoeing, I'd be dodging.
Yeah. I had to let go of I feel like if it's my idea, it's a great idea. you know, like no, this is gold. I'm giving you a platinum idea. And I had to let that go because that's not how, that doesn't fit everyone. Um, even when they tell me theirs and I'm like, okay, I can honor that. And it's tough sometimes. Even though I go in knowing, I know this, and I'm very intentional about getting you what you want. If this is what you want, cool. And I'm not even going to I put my stuff out there if you're not open to it. But it was hard. It's like, oh, okay, I can do this for you, and I can honor this for you. Um, and I'd say most of the time now it's great. But then sometimes it's like I don't know. I don't like that. But okay. Okay. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Um, and then even with the family, like so some of us reached the end having lived a life where we allowed people to tell us what we wanted or how things were going to go. So when we get there, we haven't really changed much. And so the family will come in, and like in that situation, it was the family coming in and saying, no, well, we're not going to do that. Even though you want this, we're not going to do that. And so then I have to say, whose side do you want me to be on?
Hmm.
In this situation? Do you want me to be on your side or the family side? Because I will absolutely go to bat for you. And I've had clients who said these people can come to the deathbed, but they can only be there for an hour. And if they come 58 minutes after they're supposed to be here, then they only get those 2 minutes. And I'm like, okay, I will have to put someone's mom out. And so I will go to bat for you, but whose side do you want me to be on? And so I have to let go of the thought that this is how it should be. This is how it should be versus this is what they want.
Do you see your work as like bridging work? Do you see it as work that kind of, yeah. Can you speak a little
Yeah.
bit to that?
Yeah, I love to say that, people are like, oh, you are this and you're this. I'm like, no, I'm just a bridge, right? Like I'm just I get in and I listen, I observe, I um pay very close attention. I was a student of human behavior. I was an undergrad. I was a speech communications major, which is basically how we communicate on all levels as humans, right? Um, and I realized that throughout my life, I came in and I just wanted to find out where people were and where they wanted to be and figure out how I can serve as this thing, this bridge to get them there. And it's like, okay, I know I know the process. Like even if I've never done this, I understand how this works and I can see it and I know how to get you there. And so that's what I do. And it really worked in this line of work, especially because whenever I come in, it's like, well, I know where I am. I'm dying. Or for those where, the threat isn't there yet, it's I will die. This is where I am now. But I want my ending to be this. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, okay. So let's figure out how to make this happen. And it's much easier, of course, when it's the person seemingly has 40, 30, 20 years left, hopefully. But when that's not the case, there's sort of a rush. There's an urgency to it, and it's like, okay, well, we can't get this, but how close can we come to this? There's still time for joy. There's still time for closure. There's still time to make these connections you wanted to make and to leave this legacy behind, as long as there is still breath. But there's sometimes when I come in and I had a client who was uh, deaf, blind, paralyzed, and couldn't speak. And it's, well, what can we do here? And it was, I can just come in and be a part of the comfort team. Um, and hopefully at some point he got everything he needed before I got here. But yeah, it's important to me to be that bridge, for a lot of folks because I know what it's like to, not personally, but I've seen what it's like to get to the end and having not fulfilled those things, the regret that comes with it, the sadness that comes with it. I had one friend who, I mentioned him in the book, but I didn't get into his story, but he on his deathbed, he says, I didn't get to do all the things I wanted to do. I thought I had time, and here I am now, and I don't, and it's, whew, okay, but what can we do now? And it's, well, I want to make sure that my nephews don't do the same thing. And if I can do that, then my life was still worth worth it, And it's like, okay, well, let's make that happen.
Yeah. That must have been really heavy, that moment.
It
Um,
was, yeah, it was, and more so because I like great friend, and to
yeah.
be there as his doula, and we've known each other for years, so it was like we're gonna, one, I'm grieving a life that we won't have, because it was like, yeah, we're gonna make uh we're gonna have projects in the future. You're gonna do the music, I'm gonna do the film, and all these things. And so that life that I won't have, the life that he never got to live, um, and to just see it, but just to hear the pain,
Mm,
in his voice, because I watched him live that life. And so then, and it's hard to not make part of it about you, because it's
yeah.
like, I was there for that. I witnessed that. Maybe I should have said something, and it's like, oh, but, knowing that he could leave this thing behind for his nephews was, amazing. And it was like, okay, well, let's make sure they get this message.
Yeah. Um, for those who are listening who may be actively dying or have someone in their life that is actively dying, or they're just, they're listening because they want to get more comfortable talking about death. Um, what could you say about all the things left undone? Like I want to live forever because there's so many things that I want to do it all, but I'm not going to do it all. So, depending where we are in our life, we're not going to get to do everything. What would you say to that?
We won't. We won't. But we can absolutely try. We can absolutely try to do all the things we want to do. I love to talk about how important it is for me to die empty, right? Like I think like I can pull up my notes app on my phone, and there are, I think the last time I checked, it was like 4,073 notes on there, right? And it's all like, here's a book about this, here's a movie about this, here's this, and it's like I'm not going to get to that. I'm not going to get to that, but I'm going to do my best. So when the time comes, I can say I tried. I tried to do it. But I did get to as much as I possibly could. There's that line from one of my favorite movies, Bridges of Madison County, where he's like, I had it's something like all dreams were good dreams. They didn't happen, but I'm glad I had them. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, I'm glad I had them. And just hope, the hope of one day getting to these things. Um, is exciting. A lot of the times it's like, oh, I almost I almost went to India and ate all the food from one end to the other, like all of that. And I think we can try
Yeah.
and be happy in that, as long as in the trying we got a lot of these other things done.
Yeah.
That if we don't get anything done, that's the hard part. It's like, and it doesn't have to be every day that we face this list and say, okay, I'm gonna do another thing on here. But when we think of it, do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just had this, great idea. Like maybe we could take over other people's lists when they die. Like, like how cool
That's
would
it.
that be to be like, okay, there's this random lottery, and when this person dies, I get someone's list, and I'm like, I guess I'm going to India.
Guess I'm gonna do it. I have a former coworker, and I who when her granddad died, and similar, but her granddad died, and she was going, she went to his house, and she's looking through all the stuff with her grandma, and she finds this notebook, and like a little address book. And in it, he had all these names and a phone number beside it and a birthday. And the grandma was like, "Oh yeah, he talked to strangers everywhere, and he would always ask them their birthday and their phone number, and he would call these people every year on their birthday." And she's like, "Well, what is going to happen now?" So now she took that list and she makes those calls, and it's like, yes, it goes on. So that would be amazing if we if we could.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's
We have to
try
we have
something
to
on
do
the
that.
side there.
Put that to the side. That's a look. I got to put another note in my phone. Write a movie about, but it's
Right?
it's it's
Yeah.
it's a real thing, and I think, and we do that in so many ways. It's um, I had a fraternity brother die about a year and a half ago, and it was like, oh, he was young and he wanted to do these things. And I think each of us, we honored him in a way where it was like, oh, we should do this. You know, his son wanted this. We can make that happen. Whatever that is. And so we do it. And I think we have to find the joy in knowing that someone will carry on this.
Yeah. I mean, I think that that's a beautiful way that legacy work can happen beyond like ancestry, right? Like
Mhm.
it's like you touched my life and now I'm going to be different. I just had a gathering of people on the weekend and we were sharing items from people who've died. And so people were
Okay.
telling stories about these items. And this one woman talked about how before her friend died, she smoked all the time. She ate fast food in her car. Like she just did not give a about her
Yeah.
health. And that, her friend, I think it was the day before she died, they all sat with her at the window as the sun came up, and her friend just kept kind of whispering under her dying breath, I want to live. And so my friend was at the funeral and she was out having a smoke. And there was this rainbow over the funeral home. And she was like, oh, that's my friend. And she put out
Yeah.
the cigarette and she never went back. And she like, took all these nutrition courses and she opened this health restaurant. And like, it changed her life. And it was sort of like
Yes.
the legacy of her friend. And so I think it is a really beautiful thing when people we love die and we take like their mission and we kind of mix it with our own, and
Hmm.
we
Hmm.
find our own stuff there. Yeah.
We could find so much in there if we just listen and look, and pay attention to those things. I think and even unknowingly how we carry these folks with us, Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. You have your own experience coming to terms with your own mortality.
Hmm.
Do you want to share a little bit about that and how that's changed your life?
No, absolutely. In the I talk about and I've been talking about it for forever because I think it's what shaped my life more than anything. Is that when I was 22, I was diagnosed with a blood clotting disorder at a time when I thought I would live forever. It was like you're 22. This is the greatest time in life, and but I was out of breath for about a month and a half. I couldn't walk, and one day I go to the doctor. I woke up and couldn't walk, and I was like, oh, this feels serious. I should go in. The shortness of breath just felt like I was out of shape. I wasn't going to the gym or anything. And I get in and he says, you have 16 clots going from your ankle into your lungs. And you should have been dead a month and a half ago. He's like, I have no idea why you're still here. But we can treat it, but this is a permanent situation. And at any moment, a clot could break loose and go to your lungs, your heart, or your brain. Um, so good luck. And I'm like, oh, thankfully, it wasn't the scary moment. It was because I again came from my mom and my grandma who were not afraid to talk about death, and really I'd never had a fear of death. Um, and so it was more just, oh, okay, well, this feels like borrowed time then. I need to get to the life that I want. And it became that. It was, that question that people ask, all the time is, well, if you had a year left, what would you do? If you were going to die tomorrow, what would you do? And I live with the thought that that could be the case. And so those answers we give in that, like, well, if I had a year left, uh, I'd hop on a train and hitchhike through Italy, or I'd jump off a cliff in the middle of the ocean, or I do this, and I do those things. I take the vacations. I hop in my car and go to the store, but end up driving 3,000 miles to the other coast, and it's like not even on purpose most of the time, but I think I just live with that knowledge. And so it's been more of a blessing than anything. Like every day I have to take this pill that keeps my blood thin, but when I take the pill, it's like, oh yeah, you know what? Yeah, this is to stay alive so I can do this other great thing that I want to do. So I say yes to a lot of things. I say no to a lot of things. And try to really push other folks who live without this threat
Hmm.
to sort of understand. Um, but it's hard to do. But I think what I've learned to do is say, listen, you've known people who died unexpectedly, who were younger than you, same age as you've had. And we've all at this point, everyone I know has had someone die close to them, or at least someone they knew well. And it's like they didn't know they were going to die. This could be you. We all log on to social media every day and someone's dead on there. And it's like, oh, one day this is going to be you. Are you happy with the way this turned out? I talk about my friend who's like, I never got to do the things I wanted to do. And it's like, yeah, but you could, and now you could, because you're still here. So let's get to it. So yeah, I always say, that diagnosis really uh, became a very fortunate turning point, uh, this blessing of sorts in my life. Because
Hmm.
I don't know where had that not happened, I may have just gone along and not have lived the way I wanted to. And it's not this thing that I live with every day, every hour, where I say, I could die. But when the thought comes, I do um, honor it as best I can.
Yeah. I'm thinking about what you're saying as you're talking, and that activity of like taking the pill as it's like incorporated in your life now, where you're,
Hmm.
so it is like this daily reminder. And I'm often thinking about how do we talk to people about the fact they will die without them walking around thinking I'm dying, right? Because we don't want that energy of like I'm dying, I'm sick. And I just thought, well, maybe we should tell them that like they've been diagnosed with life, which like
Hmm.
means you'll die.
You're gonna die.
Like, here's your diagnosis. You are alive and
Yeah.
you will die. And it reminds me of a Samuel Beckett quote about, I think it was like, life, there is no cure for that. And it's a
Okay.
little bit more of like the
Okay.
dark humor side, but
Yeah.
it's this is all we've got. And your work around death and end of life care, you talk a little bit about it being sort of like life coaching, right? Like a life doula almost. My background was first I started with the life coaching, and now I'm moving into the death work because I was like the ultimate goal for any of us is really how do you want to have lived, right? Like
Yeah.
what's the end goal? If you thought about your obituary, do you want people to say you were a great friend? Well, then maybe you should start doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. Like there's
Yeah.
that whole story of Alfred Nobel, right? Where he wakes up one morning and they accidentally printed a his obituary while he was still alive, and he's reading it, and he's like, and they're like, he had apparently, and I hope I get the story right, but apparently he was the inventor or engineer of TNT, so like dynamite, and so they were like the father of death and has died, and it's like all these things. And he's like, is this how they're going to remember me? And he's like, I don't want that. And so now we only know him as the guy who created the Nobel Peace Prize and the Nobel Prize for these amazing, incredible things, because he's like, that's not it.
Yeah.
That's not what I want. And how lucky he was for that, right? For them to print this thing about his death so soon.
Yeah.
And so I think that has to be it. Like going to when I talk to my friends, like I don't even sugarcoat it. I just listen. You're gonna die. I'll call them, and that'll be all I say, and then hang up just to confuse them and make them mad. Like, hey, hello, yeah, you're gonna die. Click, and that's it.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my god. But I think we don't have later. We don't have the luxury of later. It's like you have right now. And if right now is all you have, what will you do with it? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so there's lots of people out there that do end of life work, and they don't have these hilarious, lively, educational Instagram social
Mhm.
media presence. Um, I think yours is so refreshing because I do think it's inviting, and it's the type of content and expression of yourself and your love and your care that allows. I mean, yesterday there was something, it was, oh yeah, you're pretending to like
Or
season
was it the
season food with like, a
with
client.
ashes?
And it's like, shock value for sure. But also, I wonder, for you, does it feel intentionally important to have humor around this?
Yeah,
Or is that just who you are and so it's going to
I'd
come
say
out?
yeah, it's not intentional at all. It's like when I get together, it's when I get together with people who love to talk about death and love to talk about mortality, we have such an amazing time. Like I always talk about, like every death conference I've been to, um, whether it's I did one in New York, the All Is Well initiative, and the End Well conference, and Grieftastic, and like all these incredible things. Like you get there, and it's one of the greatest days. It's just people there laughing, having fun, enjoying each other, because we look at death and we look at grief like it has to be this one thing of breaking down and crying and you know um just unable to go on and move, but it's not that all the time. It's remembering and laughing, and I love the repast at a funeral because it's the time when we can all get together. And I remember a friend died young. She was 25, and we were all at a repast, but there were folks there who weren't um familiar with the tradition of the repast, which is the food and the moments after the funeral. And we were all there having such a great time. There was dancing and laughing and just laughing till we cried. And she's like, "What? Why are y'all doing this? This is disrespectful." It's like, no, this is necessary. This is how we get through. This is how we remember and, build community. And this is how we hold each other through this. And so it's not intentional that I create that my social media is that way. Or I don't aim and wake up and say, I'm going to post something funny. It's just, this is how it comes out um, in that moment. Because that's how it comes out
Yeah.
for us,
Yeah.
and like, so when the people, even people who say, oh, in their grief, they feel that they've been grieving wrong, or they feel guilty for laughing that first time after a loss, or going to an amusement park and having fun, or going to a party. It's like, I'm having too much fun. I should go home and be sad. No, this can be grief too.
Yeah, I love that part. I don't know if it was one chapter or like all through it, but just that grief can look different because it
Hmm.
actually really helped me understand some of the members of my family who I've been like, do you not care? Like, not
Yeah.
that I needed them to cry, but my mom who swore she would never be a bird watcher. My grandma was this like really avid bird watcher who could whistle in like 15 different birds languages. And,
I love
my
that.
mom was always like, "What a waste of time. That's ridiculous." And my mom now is like one of the local people who like counts birds for the city and like no, and she never speaks about it being
Yeah,
related to my grandma, but it definitely is, I think, her way of grieving. And I just really appreciated that because I could see that so clearly. Whereas mine is like, I want to talk about it. I want to, I just
I
want to like,
love that. Yeah,
yeah,
no, I love that. I love your mom is doing that. Like, yeah, and I think we so often we don't even notice how
yeah,
these people, how we've held on to these people we've lost.
yeah,
And your mom is a great case of that. I think, like for me, I remember so badly wanting to see my grandmother once, and um, days prior, I gotten some grapefruit from the lodge at this resort this wellness center I was at, and I'd eaten one, and one was just sitting on the desk. And for days, I would wake up and say, I need to eat this grapefruit. Why is it? I need to eat this thing. And then one night, I'm like, I wish I could just hug my grandma. And I look over and see this grapefruit, and I just break down. And my grandmother was who introduced me to grapefruit. We eat it together all the time. Whenever I eat, I'm reminded of her and those times we had. And I just had this thought of, this is why I've had this here for days, to feel her presence just in this room, and it took a while, but eventually I realized that, and I was able to, uh acknowledge that for me. And it was like, oh yeah, we collect people, as we go, and we collect these things. So your mom watching these birds, of course,
yeah.
it's like, yeah, right
Yeah.
on.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Um, you probably get this. I get people who ask me a lot, or they just say, I've never lost anyone big in my life. That's kind of how they phrase it. Like, I haven't had a
Mhm.
big loss. I haven't, and it feels paralyzing, or I'm terrified of what's going to happen to me when I do lose somebody because it's never happened. What do you say to people when they ask you that question or kind of show their fear around losing people?
Yep, it's tough. It's one of those things where I love to tell people that, having these conversations and talking about it with the folks they love can seem hard, but I say, I promise, if you do it, and you could just and promise yourself, joy at the end of those conversations, then when you get to these moments where you lose these folks you love so much, and it doesn't get rid of the grief, but it does make it a little easier. It makes it, it helps you with the processing of it. Like, I talk to my mom and my stepdad. We talk about it so often, and have for, again, as long as I can remember. My mom was, taking care of cousins since I was a kid. Cousins who were at the end of their life. She's the one, when someone dies, or someone's dying, she goes to the hospital. She makes sure that everything's in order. Um, and so we have these conversations. How do you want this to go? Where do you want to be buried? All these things. And it's fun now. Like, it's funny, and there's humor we can throw in there and make it light. And so I know when the time comes, it's not going to be easy. that I lost my mom, but it will be these moments of, oh, I can actually get to the grieving much sooner because we've had these conversations. I know what she wanted. I know there aren't any questions I need to ask or have to figure out. And so I tell people, when you're afraid of that and those thoughts come, just finding ways to have those conversations. It's, the fear of it. Um, it should be less. The fear of having those conversations should be less than the fear of them dying without having,
Mm,
talk about it. The regret of what
yeah.
could have been. Like so many people I know, they say, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it, but now I regret not doing it. And that regret is so much bigger than the fear
Yeah.
of actually doing it. And so I talk about that part
Yeah.
more. And it's like, can you live with that? Because that's a regret that, once they are gone, that's it.
Yeah.
That's permanent.
Yeah.
And we're none of us are going to make it out of here without regrets. But it's, if we can lessen that, if we can make it fewer, then why not?
Yeah. It just made me think, I don't know if you've ever had this in the with all the technology and the social media and emails when someone dies and you kind of go back through like conversations and stuff, what a gift it can be to have it in writing. And so I just thought about one of my mentors died in the summer, and for some reason I just felt like going through our email and just searching like his name plus dead.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I found this email where I had asked him um, something like, how do you want people to think about you when you die? And it was kind of out of context. And there I had the most beautiful thing about, it was like what he had hoped things would be like at the end of his life. And his death was really tragic. So that's unfortunate. He didn't get that. But it did feel really comforting
Yeah.
to have asked that really strange thing. And I think I had the courage because it was an email. It might have been strange to say it over dinner or something like
Yeah. No, absolutely.
um, but like what a gift, right? To have the
What
words
a
of
gift.
the person you love. So
I
if
think
anyone's listening, yeah.
amazing. Yeah, like I've done this uh thing. Well, first the what inspired it. There was a story I heard a few years ago of this young guy, college age kid who went surfing and died out there. Something happened, tragic, and his parents have to go and clean up his dorm room. They get his computer, get all these things, and everything sat for a year, and they're just going through it. And one day they found, the courage to just open his computer and go through this computer. And there was a classroom assignment he had that if if I died now, what would I want my parents to know?
Whoa.
And it was just this, it was like, and it was like, he's like, if I died now, it would probably be in the water. And he's like, I'd want them to know this. And it was just this incredible thing that they left behind,
Yeah.
that he left behind for them, this gift. And so it's something that I do for people and even students, young people. It's like, listen, if you died now, what do you want people to
Yeah.
know about how you lived? Because especially like being a death doula is like being a life doula, and vice versa. It's like we can't talk about one without knowing about the other, and so it's like yeah, we have to get through this, and so it's that's amazing work. I'm
Yeah.
glad you found that. I'm so glad you found that.
Yeah. Well, if anyone's listening, like send the email. Just
Send
send an
me.
email to people and be like,
Mhm.
it's not specific. I want to know from everybody. See who sends it back. I remember also sending a message to my family a few years ago because I was like, if I die, I don't think they know who my friends are. And so I was like, here, call these people. They will call other people
Yeah.
because I don't think they'd know who to invite. And I'd want everybody there. And then on the weekend, I just had this like impromptu feeling to write on a envelope, if I die before you. In it, it just put some like basic first instructions.
That's so
And I'm like,
good.
I'm just gonna keep updating that because I think sometimes, even though I'm in this work, I still put stuff off. Like
Yeah.
I still am human.
Same.
I still believe I'm going to be here for so long.
Yep.
It's not fun necessarily to sit down and like do your, advanced work and things like that. So, but you can do something, and it can start with just like donate my body.
Yeah.
Whatever
Yeah.
feels most important if you get to say one thing.
Yeah, no, same. I think, even whenever you have that thought, like if it's just a thought, create that envelope, create a jar
Yeah,
with some paper around it. It's like, oh, yeah, write that down.
yeah.
20 seconds, throw it in the jar, and someone will find it. I had a friend the other day, I had a dream the other day about a friend who I was walking through the woods, and suddenly I realized, I was like, why am I walking alone? She was with me. Oh, she's dead. Oh, I'm sad about that. Oh, how will I know about the funeral? No one will call me. So I woke up and I called her. I was like, hey, I had a dream you died, and no one knew how to tell me that there was a funeral. And so I didn't get to make it. And she was like, oh, I should give you my parents' number because they've asked for yours. And I'm like, well, yeah, share that.
Yeah.
And it's that. Like that's it too.
It's so real though. Like what you just said is like it's such a big fear of mine is that someone I love will die and no one will know to tell me, and maybe they're not on the internet or we don't have mutual friends. So because it happens sometimes, right? Like time goes by and then you miss the moment where everyone could get together and tell the stories and you can have that
Yeah.
sort of airing of grief together.
Yeah.
Okay. Your book is amazing.
Thank you.
For anyone who has not gotten a copy, get the copy. It doesn't matter if you're in death work at all. Like this is just a human to human book about the stories of beautiful, wonderful people on their way to the end of their life. I just want to like pick one, maybe, and I think I'm gonna pick the chapter um, that has that I can least relate to. So let's talk about Black men.
Okay. Yeah.
The chapter is called Black Men Don't Grieve for Themselves. Tell me what that means to you, why this chapter was important, and what we can also share with whether Black men are listening or everyone else who's not a Black man, doesn't identify as a Black man.
Yeah.
How can we help Black men grieve?
Yeah. What inspired it in a way was while writing this book, I my one of my father's friends and this guy that I'd grown up with my entire life. I found out he had pancreatic cancer, and it was sort of this thing. And I go to my dad and I tell him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I know, but I'm not going up to the hospital. I'm not gonna. I don't do hospitals, and you know all." And I was like, "What? What do you mean?" And as someone who works in this space, like for me, that's an easy answer. But for my dad and so many men in my dad's generation, it's this. Well, one, I don't want to have to face death because if I go up there and talk about it, it's going to happen. Two, I spent my life pretending to be the strong one, you know, amongst the people, amongst my friends and my family. And so if I go up there and I break down, there's no what's going to happen. If I break, who's going to put me back together? And then, and faith and generational trauma, um, racial inequality, like all these things play a role in that, where um, it makes it hard to do. And so you have generations of Black men who die, and even on their deathbed, it's I can't um, I can't grieve myself here. Like I still have to be the strong. Still have to be the strong one for the family that's coming in to see me, because they're gonna fall apart. And then like everyone I know is like, I never I seen my dad cry once, and it's like, and that's sad. you know why? And they take pride in that. I don't cry. It's like you do, and you have, we've just never seen it. And so it was important for me to write this chapter so they know, so to create a space. And I like to, in this work, it's important for me when I come into a space to uh, create this place of trust where they feel that they can do these things. And honestly, I don't get called by Black men to come in and do this work for them. It's, nah. Mm-mm. And when I come in, it's because someone else called me and they don't know what else to do. And this is the last resort. And maybe he'll talk to you. Yeah. And it's like, okay, I got it from here. But and then even there's a part in that chapter where I talk about a mushroom ceremony even. And I remember having to call my editor like, hey, listen, I want to talk about this, but will this be too far left, in the book? Well, this is too woo-woo, And she's like, nah, put it in. She's like, put it in. I think it's important. And there was a situation, not a situation, but there was this mushroom journey I had where just countless Black men showed up saying I didn't get to grieve myself. I was told that I had to be this person. I had to do this thing, and society didn't let me do this. And it was like, yeah, no, that's not true. As far as that you couldn't do it. Now, what society told you, yes, that's true. And I believe that 100% for you. But you can grieve here. And they just wanted to cry. They said, can I just use you to cry? And I said, yeah, okay. And the entire night is just weeping, and heavy. And so it's sort of informed the way I do this work now when I am fortunate enough to get called by a medical team. So the Black men that I have seen, I've been called in by the family or the medical team, and I get to come in and say, okay, listen, I have to create this space, and it may take extra work, but we're gonna get there. You are going to grieve before I leave here, and and thankfully it's been successful for the most part. The one kid, he was 21. He was who was blind and deaf and paralyzed and couldn't speak, and that was hard. But when I got there, thankfully he still had vision and hearing on one side, and so we were able to find a way to communicate. But even in that, it was sort of like you could see this sort of letting go happening. And I'm so grateful for that.
That's incredible. You are a treasure. You are such a treasure to this
Thank you so much.
planet and to all the people who met you. Like, wow, are we lucky?
Oh, no, thank
Really,
you so
it's
much. I
incredible.
appreciate it.
There was something that just reminded me when I was reading the book, every chapter like touched me in some ways, but some of them I just wept. And I thought, I wonder if that means like that topic or that area is like something I really needed that release on, or I need to like dig into. So yeah, I don't it took me like a day or two to read it. It was incredible. I just
Right.
loved it so much.
Okay.
And I do hope so many people get this. I think if you're having a hard time grieving, this book is gonna get you there. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. I think I I just want people to realize, like, we've all been doing this work on some level, and or we all could. And some of us may find ourselves, I read this book and I've been like, while I was, the death doula, or, someone who became the death doula in the book, I've also been on the other side in some of these stories where I was grieving alone and someone offered me a kind hug or a note or, a smile, or just to have a conversation that created a safe space for me. Um, and so I just hope that people can read this and say, oh, it's something this work is something as simple as I'm watching someone cry across the street and I just walk over and ask if they're okay and give them a hug if they want one. And it's like, yes, that's it too.
Yeah, there was in the book there's a moment where you're on a train and
Hmm.
I won't give it away,
Yeah.
but there's been like twice since that where I was like that person might be sad or grieving, and just there's other reasons that I reach out to strangers all the time, but this is a new one for me where I it kind of gave me the courage to reach out, and if they think I'm weird, that's okay.
It's all right. It's all right.
What
But you
did I
did
lose?
it. Yeah, you did it, and you may have saved a life, even if they think you're weird. You like the number of times I've had people who are now friends, I'll reach out and I'm like, I think they need something. And I'll reach out and they're like, no, 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 I'm good, whatever. And then months later, I had one friend months later. Actually, no, it was like a year later. And he was like, you remember you reached out to me that one day? And I said something like, hey, don't forget, you need to get your passport soon. We really got to go on the trip. And that was it. And he was like, when you said that, He was like, I was going, that was going to be my last day here. He
Wow.
was like, and you said that, he's like, and it made me realize that someone wanted me here for something. He's like, so I didn't do it. And I was like, huh. He's like, I didn't know how to tell you that then, but I'm glad to see you in person. That I can tell you that. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we don't know how many people we've saved from just smiling at them, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope your publicist is okay with the F-bomb I just dropped in the middle there.
Oh, please, please. Yeah, I cuss all the time. So
Great
I
interview
I
until she
usually
said
ask
the
people,
N-word.
yeah, I usually ask when I come on, like, are we cussing on this podcast? We're good. Okay.
Yeah.
It's fine. Yeah.
Um, Amazing. So is there anything that you've want us to touch on that feels really important about the mission of the book? Any like threads that you want to get in there?
Mm.
Um, we've like talked about so much today that I think is so inspiring for living our life. I do ask guests, what advice do you have for the living? So I don't I don't know if you have anything else
Yeah,
there.
no, I just think the thread is, the thread in the book is not so much the thread, but a common theme in there is that, even though we may show up as one thing, just being, open to the change. I think in the story with the note on the train, um, in the story with the soldier, I think the chapter is called, where I go to this funeral as a photographer and end up, creating the space for someone there who is grieving. And so, being open to that, so, because people need it. If you have the capacity to give it, then do that. So I think that's like the common theme, and I hope that's what sticks with people is that, oh, like even going into these hospital spaces or hospices or nursing homes or whatever, people say, I don't know, I can't do it. I'll just go in there and fall apart if I'm like, well, you don't have to go in there and sit with people at the end of their life. You are a musician. You know how to paint nails. You know how to do hair. You have a camera, even just a cell phone camera, and a small printer. Go in there. People want to feel seen and just want your presence. I learned that at 13 when I was volunteering at a hospice, and they would just ask me, I'm in there changing calendars in the room, and the people would just say, could you just sit with me for a while? And at the time, at 13, I'm just like, yeah, I can do that. And I'm in there playing checkers or whatever, not realizing how impactful this moment would be in my life later on, but also what it may have meant for them, having have not had people in their room for months or weeks. Family didn't visit, and it's like, if I can do it, yeah, why not? And so I think I want us all to do that. I want us all to just say, oh, I can provide this. Let me do it.
I love that. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. I know that people who are listening cannot see this, but this is the book that you want to get, Never Can Say Goodbye.
Oh, I see it.
And
Yeah, there it is.
we want to make sure that it is Darnell Lamont Walker because I have heard somewhere else that Darnell Walker is not you.
It
You may
is
have done some shady
Darnell.
things out
Yeah,
there.
I had to start using my middle name, because I used to hate it. I didn't hate my middle name, but I
It's
hated
so,
how
I
my
so,
names went together. And
oh yeah,
then I got Google alerts like over a decade ago, and every time Darnell Walker would get sent to my email, it was always like an arrest
yeah,
or like something crazy was happening, and I'm like, yeah, no, I gotta change this.
yeah. I don't know if that's my name's Jenna Goodhand, and back in the day there was quite a famous Jenna that would show up on a lot of sites. So
Okay, yeah, yeah.
I get a lot of that. So, but
Oh,
hey,
I can
how people
imagine
find
typing
me.
that whole name in though. What would come up? Jenna Goodhand. You got to put those two,
You
that
got it.
last name
Yeah,
together. You can't separate Good Hands and
yeah,
Jenna on
yeah.
Google. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but as we get older, we appreciate that that it can help people find us.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much, Darnell. I wish you so much continued success with this book, and I'll continue to follow along. And
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
I just really appreciate this time together today.
I'm so grateful for you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I look forward to it, and hit me up anytime.
One of the things I hope you got from this conversation today with Darnell was the realization that conversations that include death can happen all day long. in many different ways, that death doesn't have to be this isolated conversation that you prepare for or that has to feel separate from the rest of your life, because death is not separate from the rest of our life. And I'm really excited that we had this conversation today because I think the spirit of it, the joy that kind of found its way in it, can give you that confidence and that comfort to know that, hey, yes, you are also someone who can talk about death with those around you. And it might be a little awkward and maybe even a little cringy when you're starting, but you can arrive at a place where it just becomes a part of your everyday conversation. And the opportunities and the benefits that you'll give people around you by being that person are so rewarding. Thank you again for being here with me on this journey of talking to people about death, loss, grief, everything in between. Thank you for suggesting authors, topics, sending questions that you have, concerns that you have. Let's figure it out together. We are all in this together, and I really do believe that a death literate society, a grief literate society, culture in which we talk about these things can enrich the lives of all of us. So thank you so deeply, and I look forward to talking and sharing with you again soon.